So intimacy with God is beyond and deeper than sexual union. It is the knowledge of the heart, cardiogenosis, that knowledge, that intimacy reveals. And on my journey, I had many experiences that revealed that knowledge. It wasn't intellectual knowledge. It wasn't that Jesus was saying to me or the Father was saying something that went into my head. It was knowledge or truth that was imparted into my heart, often through the intimacy of a hug, through a heart-to-heart engagement. And, you know, you can hug someone and be heart-to-heart, or hug someone and be opposite heart-to-heart by the way in which you hug people. And a lot of people hug people in a way which keeps their hearts apart. We need to embrace God as Father and allow him to reveal the truth of that relationship, so we would know who God is by experience. And I remember one time during this journey where I was getting caught up in doing things for God because it was a thrill, and it was amazing to discover what I could do in the realms of heaven or what I could do in the courts of heaven, and what I was learning from God about my sonship position and my governmental position in sonship. It was amazing. But that was becoming my focus rather than the relationship. And so one day I engaged with God in intimacy, as I did every day. There was a hug, and I started to ask the Father, well, what are we doing today? And there was nothing vocal that came back. Just he hugged me close and wouldn't let me go. He didn't say anything, but there was an infusion of knowledge of the truth of the Father, and that resonance with his frequency, that I learned more about the fragrance and intimacy with God as Father during that hug than anything else during my experience with God, because he infused it into my heart by stopping me getting onto the works-based mentality of it all. Now, when we're talking about relationship, union, we're not talking about gender. There is no male or female in the kingdom, and sonship is neither male or female. So it's referring to both sons and daughters. So we're not talking here about a marriage in the sense of a male and a female. We're talking about first love being the restoration of our relationship identity as sons and daughters. So there's no need for gender identity within that. Now, I'm not saying you should ignore the fact that you are a male or female physically here, but when it comes to spiritual and the spiritual nature of our identity, God is not looking at those characteristics. He's looking at who we really are. We're all made in his image and likeness, because God has both male and female characteristics anyway. So we're not looking at the male, female, and therefore what is marriage between a male or female. That's not what we're looking at when we're looking at this relationship of union. We're looking at a union in the spirit. So first love restores our true identity in a union of spirit, soul, body, with Father, Son, and Spirit within the core of our innermost being. That process leads to the consummation, that deepening of the relationship, when we've got to a point where we've accepted the invitation of God's love and the fact that he loves us and wants relationship at that level. We have begun to understand and be encouraged with our destiny and our identity as sons and daughters, and for that then to take us through the process of transformation that would be needed to enable us to come to that deep relationship and to engage God actually face to face. So the whole journey that I went on through that process of the garden and the dance floor and the soaking room and the bridal chamber took me to face relationship with the Father. Even at that moment, I could not contain that experience for long, It was too overwhelming for me, even though I'd gone through that journey, because there was still more to happen in my life. But that first experience, as small as it was, opened the door for future experiences, until over the last number of years, I have dwelt in the presence of God face to face, in the presence of God, person to person with God, heart to heart, mind to mind, eye to eye, spirit to spirit, if you like, in that place of intimacy that I couldn't have even imagined. That at the beginning, the first time I looked at God face to face, I was afraid because I was told, if you look into God's eyes, you might never come back. And in reality, I can understand something of that, because the multifaceted nature and manifold nature of God was just overwhelming to my senses, to my soul. But the more I embraced the intimacy and relationship, the more I was able to dwell and stay face to face, heart to heart. And that relationship just deepened and deepened. So I was able to stay there longer and longer and longer until it became my dwelling place. Just like God dwells in me, and I've learned to understand and experience God dwelling in me, in that union, in that relationship, within the very core of my being, I also learned to dwell with God in the realm of perfection, in the light of his presence, in a way that I could never have even imagined or thought in the beginning. But I experienced it. Slowly, the relationship deepened, the intimacy deepened, the knowledge that I had of who God is, particularly obviously in unconditional love, in rest, in love and joy and peace, in living loved and loving living and living loving, that whole process, that whole journey to bring me to that state of reality, took 10, 12 years of my life. But it was, a process that I had to go through, because I couldn't jump from where I was to where I am without having gone through the experiences that I've gone through, that eventually bring you to being able to see yourself in a non-linear, multi-dimensional way, that you're not limited by time, space, or material things, that there's so much more for us to discover about who we really are. So the process leads to the consummation, is the re-establishing of first love, and the process is like a courtship or a betrothal. It is going deeper and deeper and deeper until you are able to come to a point of consummation where the soul, spirit, and body are in union with God. If you enjoy these videos, would you please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe? It really does help. Thank you very much.